schedule, guys. And I think it is so daunting against the top-tier teams that it's going to be almost impossible. While I think Georgia might have the best talent, the best roster, the fewest questions in the country, to expect them to navigate throughout that season unscathed, to me, feels like a bridge too far.
Greg, you talked about putting a middle-of-the-tier team and facing them against that schedule. Well, I have a middle-of-the-tier team that has a schedule like that, and that's Florida. I mean, Florida, if you look at their schedule, there's back-to-back-to-back ranked games. And so, yes, I understand the expectations aren't as high for a team like Florida, but their schedule, to me, is much more difficult based off the fact that, yes, it's Billy Napier. It's another year in trying to rebuild, but that schedule is daunting for me if I'm Florida. And you say middle of the tier, take a different team, that's what I look at. I think Florida's a little bit more tougher.
And one other thing that I found interesting, too, and I thought the SEC did an admirable job. Basically, the goal was not to make anybody happy with their schedule. Because if someone's happy with their schedule, then it's probably a little bit too easy.
Right.
And you knew that there were going to be teams that were mad, but I think the goal of the SEC was to make everybody equally mad. Well, I think they did a really good job of that, but you look at what Oklahoma has versus what Texas has, and I know Texas has a non-conference game on the road at Michigan, but you look at the two new entries into the league, and they just feel very, very different. Yes, Texas has to play against Georgia, and Oklahoma avoids the Bulldogs. That's massive. But Oklahoma having to go to Ole Miss, having to play at number 11 Missouri, welcoming Alabama to their place, looking at a road trip to LSU. Oklahoma's final 6 games of the year are absolutely brutal. Texas, Ole Miss, Bama, Missouri, LSU. Whereas I think Texas's schedule is a little bit more manageable. You have a good, solid team in Colorado State before you get warmed up and revved up before you play at Michigan. UTSA is tough. UL Monroe is very gettable. Then you have a couple games that are at home that are sandwiching that neutral site game against Oklahoma. So you really fast forward all the way to the end, and outside of the road trip to Michigan in week 2, you never leave the state of Texas until you go to Vanderbilt, the worst team in the SEC, on October 26th. So I just look at how Texas' schedule sets up, and I think it's a lot more manageable than the other newcomer in the SEC in Oklahoma.
Yeah, when Steve Sarkisian was talking about the schedule, he's like, all right, come to break though, all these games are still hard, coach speak at its finest, but you can't deny it, especially when you see those two schedules side by side like you just did there. Greg, one of the things, Sam, that Heather had referenced earlier on in the show is Notre Dame and some of the potential issues with not having the conference championship game to play, but as you look at Notre Dame's schedule, what sticks out to you?
It's somewhat of a walk in the park. It's not a breeze, but it's probably like a cool mist. I look at A&M week 1.
That's a Fighting Irish.
Bringing in a new coach. Quarterback has had some injury issues, so that's a game that's definitely gettable. Then fast forward, the next ranked game, November 9th against Florida State. Florida State's breaking in a new quarterback. Who knows if DJ Uiagalelei is going to be the answer? And then USC, the third final ranked game that they played. USC has a new quarterback as well. Caleb Williams is in the NFL, so new quarterback, new conference. Who knows what USC will look like? So for me, the schedule is a cool breeze through somewhere in Notre Dame, South Bend area.
Yeah, I look at it, and I think their toughest game is week 1. And not only is it week 1, is that's always, I think, probably the hardest week for coaches and players. Like, what do we got? Well, we'll find out. So, knowing they have to go to College Station, where A&M will have a little bit of an advantage from a gamesmanship standpoint because the threat of the unknown. Notre Dame in preparation for that A&M game because Mike Elko's new. Colin Klein, the offensive coordinator, he's new. They're going to be chasing some ghosts, probably looking at tape from years past. So I think A&M has a pretty significant advantage in that week 1 game, not because of personnel, but because just the tactical gamesmanship advantage of having a new head coach. I also think, too, I don't know what SC is going to be in week 12. And that's the other road trip that could be challenging. And by that point, maybe SC's defense hasn't come along. Maybe they're a little beat up. And then you have that Florida State game there in the middle. It's in South Bend. I just think Notre Dame's schedule is extremely manageable. And while everybody seems to think, hey, 10-2 will automatically get you in the playoff, I don't know if that's the case for Notre Dame. Because if you're 10-2 and your best, and you lose to A&M and Florida State, your best win might be on the road at an 8-4 SC. Is that going to be enough to get you in? I'm not sure about that.
And the one concern I do have week 1 versus A&M for Notre Dame is they're down really 2 starting left tackles. I say 2 because Joe Alt, who went to the NFL 5th overall, is gone. And the guy who came to replace Joe Alt, Jagasaw, he's out as well. And so now you're breaking in an even newer left tackle against a Mike Elko-led defense. I expect some issues.
Yeah, so much of the conversation with the College Football Playoff Committee in years past has been strength of schedule, strength of record, and how they deal with all that. That still applies in an expanded playoff. So it's worth remembering that these schedules, and like Greg's pointing out, Sam, as well, the important wins and maybe even the losses are going to matter. We got more coming your way. And up next, we're still making some preseason predictions. Will Michigan stay atop the Big Ten, or will Ohio State be the team to beat? Herbie has also given out some coaching awards. That's next.
Last year's Heisman Trophy winner and national champion head coach are both off to the NFL. But neither one left the biggest shoes to fill in college football. Find out who takes that award next.